Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of The Hunt. For those tuning in for the first time, my name is Kevin Roth. I am a director of recruiting at Advice, a full-service recruiting agency here in New York. And this show is all about giving insight and advice on a weekly basis about all the different scenarios and situations you face, whether you're looking for a job or looking to hire talent. So for those that are tuning in for the first time, I hope you get a lot of good value out of it. And this is meant to be an interactive show. So for those watching, definitely make sure you jump in throughout the show. Use the comment box to throw your questions. If you're dealing with this exact situation or any scenarios that I can give you some firsthand perspective on, being that we work in this space every single day, show's all about helping everyone out there who's navigating through a job search, especially in today's day and age where you don't have as many resources in person. So without further ado, I wanted to touch on a topic today that has become extremely popular. I mean, it's always been a prominent subject, and I think it's so popular, in fact, that we had it come up 2 days ago, right after we posted the topic for this, completely coincidentally. And it's an important one to understand because I think people, especially going through a job search for the first time, can get pressured into things very easily. They don't necessarily know what's the norm and what's not. So this is really an episode that I think will be very well suited for people that are changing jobs for just the first or second time in their career, who haven't really gone through this a lot, and who might not know exactly what they're looking for in terms of looking out for red flags. So that being said, today's topic, as you can see from the post, is all about buying more time on an offer. So if you picture yourself in this situation, you are getting close to final rounds on multiple positions, you have several different opportunities you're seeing through, and then one comes through with an offer, which is great, right? It came through with a good offer, you're excited about it, you love the company, opportunity seems good. The bad thing is you have one other opportunity that you really have on like an even playing field, and they still need you to meet one more person next week. So here you have an offer in hand, and then you have another opportunity that you want to see all the way through before you make your final decision. It's an important career move. So the big kicker is the company that gave you the offer is telling you, let's say it's Thursday right now, they'd love an answer from you by end of day tomorrow, just so going into the weekend, they know if you're on board or not. So everyone faces this situation, especially if you're interviewing for multiple opportunities, and it can be a very scary scenario because you don't want to lose the offer. You don't want to turn the company off by telling them the situation and having them pull the offer from you. But you also don't want to jump at the first thing that comes through. If you're this close to the end with another opportunity, you want to do right by yourself and see that through. So this episode is all about guiding you through how to approach that process so that you can have your cake and eat it too, in that you can maintain the offer that you have, not risk losing it, but also buy the time you need to see that other opportunity come to fruition. So that being said, again, if you have questions around this, you're facing this situation right now, you're not sure how to navigate, use the comment box, chime in. Would love to hear from you so that I can approach these topics in real time and walk you through it. But when thinking about this exact situation, the very first thing before you even start thinking about scrambling and having to have a discussion with the company is figure out who's the person delivering the deadline. And the real distinction becomes, is this coming direct from the company? Did the company tell you directly they want an answer by this date and this time? Or was it funneled through a third party, most notably a recruiter, like someone in my line of work, an agency recruiter? The real distinction becomes, if you're hearing this through a recruiter, you have to take a step back and keep in mind the motivation for a recruiter to push this through. Unless the other opportunity you're exploring is through them, the only chance they have at making a placement here with you is that you accept this offer. So I'd like to think that most recruiters out there do things the right way and really have your best interest at heart. But sometimes the sales side takes over, and you have to be aware of that. You have to be able to see through that. If this is coming through a recruiter, really read through the lines, and you have to discuss with them, be honest with them first, give them a shot to do the right thing, and tell them about your other opportunity. Tell them you really want to see that through before giving an offer, and sense the reaction. If this recruiter's telling you you're going to blow this, if you don't get back to them by tomorrow, they're going to think something's wrong, they're going to pull the offer, I wouldn't do it, I refuse to do it. If you're sensing that type of defensiveness versus a welcoming recruiter who would say, okay, let me see what I can do. Let's navigate through this situation, start playing out scenarios. If you're really getting that defensive kind of wall up that's telling you need to take this or you're going to screw it up, then you need to go around that recruiter and speak to the company directly. because they need to hear it from you, and you need to make sure 100% that this is actually the case. All right, so first thing to figure out, if you're faced with one of these deadlines and you need to buy more time on the offer, you don't want to lose it, you want to see another opportunity through, evaluate who's the one delivering that message. And if it's an agency recruiter that's saying that to you and they're taking a very defensive approach when you ask them if they can advocate for you and try to buy a little time, then you owe it to yourself to go around that person, reach out to the company directly, and have that conversation firsthand. All right, number one thing to figure out, because more often than not, unfortunately, there might be a guideline type of deadline where a company might tell me, Kevin, we'd love to hear back from them by Friday if they have any questions before the weekend. But it is very rare that I ever have a company tell me we need an answer by tomorrow or by 2 days from now, or else we're pulling the offer and moving on. I've been doing this for over 6 years in New York with a specific market. I have rarely seen that be the case. And if it is the case, it's usually a red flag. So feel that out, understand who it's coming from. So once you figure that out, then you have to understand, how do I ask for more time? How do I go about this? Because a lot of people, you really got to think about how to approach this comfortably without rocking the boat. You don't want the company to withdraw the offer by saying the wrong thing, but you have to be able to have this conversation. And a lot of times, again, unless you have a recruiter that you really trust, that knows what they're doing, that has great relationships, this is a discussion that is probably best suited firsthand. And it is best done over the phone. So step one, reach out to the company, send a quick email. Thank you so much for the offer. Would really love to run one question by you. When do you have some time? Do it over the phone so they can sense your tone, your enthusiasm, the approach that you're taking. Too much gets lost in email. So step one, send a note to that company and ask them when they can speak. From there, first thing you need to do over the phone, reinforce your enthusiasm for the position. You're excited about it. You appreciate the offer. It's a great package. You're really excited about the company. Make that the very first way you lead into the discussion so that they feel at ease. They appreciate the sincerity and the genuine nature of your interest, and that you're not just buying time just to have a backup option, but that you really do value this. Once you reinforce your enthusiasm for the position, the second thing you have to do is convey the importance of why you need this time and why it's so important for you to make the right decision. So how do you go about this? Be upfront, be transparent. Step one was reinforcing your interest. So they already know you're genuinely enthusiastic about this, that you generally see value here. So step two is taking that to the next level and sharing with them. Mentioning that this is an important move for you. You really take a lot of pride in making the right career decision at this juncture of your career. And whatever you go into, whatever your decision is, you want it to be full eyes forward, no regrets. You want to know that you had all the cards on the table and that you made the best move for you. And in comparison, that also means you're making the best move for this company. Because if you're not wholeheartedly in it and you're always thinking about what about that other role, what if that other role comes back around 3 months from now and things haven't been spectacular with this place? Are you really in it for the right reasons? So educate that company, have that conversation about the importance that you're this far along with this other opportunity. You feel it's very important for you to see this other situation through, and you really want to take your time, make sure you have everything on the table, and hopefully they can appreciate and respect that you're doing this because this role is important to you. You want to be at a place that you're going to see yourself for a very long time, and you want to make sure it's the right move based on all information considered and not based on a gut reaction because of a certain deadline. Okay, so that's that second step. Lastly, and probably one of the most important things to show your professional respect and courtesy, set a clear timeline for follow-up. Okay, give them an expectation of what's remaining. If your last step with that other opportunity is an interview next week, let them know you have that interview next Tuesday. Right after that interview, you're going to also convey to that company that you need to get an idea quickly of their thoughts so that you can get everything in order. And you'll follow up with them after that interview on Tuesday to at least keep them posted on where things stand. Okay, so now you have that next date set. When that Tuesday comes along, follow up with them, even if you don't have concrete information, just to show you're keeping them in the loop. And in a reciprocal context, ask them to please be honest with you if they're just stretching themselves too thin, if you're buying too much time, if they really need to make a decision, to please just let you know so that you can make an ultimate decision if they really gotta make things happen and move on it. Okay, so that last step is critical. You really have to convey and communicate that you'll have a set timeline. Here's when they'll hear from you next, so that it buys you that time. You're not just open-ended in when they got to wait till. They know, all right, another 4 days, we'll have an update, and then from that point, we'll make the best next step from there. And conversely, make sure they also are aware to keep you updated. If you're coming across and they need to make a decision, it's getting to be stretched too far, then to let you know and really fill you in on. You want them to be honest with you. You're not going to judge them, but you want to know that so that you can do right by everybody. All right. So that's the way you get through that communication pattern. And again, if you have questions about this or comments about this or you're facing this, put it in the comments so that I can get to this before today's show wraps up. All right. But the last thing you need to do in this conversation, and perhaps one of the most telling signs that you should be keeping an eye out for these conversations, is read the reaction. Read the body language through the phone. And that's why a phone call is so important. If you can do it over video, even better. But read the reaction and get an understanding of why the sense of urgency. Okay? And you don't need to challenge them like that, but get an understanding if they are waffling and they're a little hesitant, then ask them, can I guess, what is there something coming up? What is the reason for the urgency and the desperation or the real need to get me on board sooner? And find out, because there might be a real logical thing behind it. Maybe they have a major deadline coming up. Maybe they need this person to be part of something that's coming up sooner and they can't keep pushing this thing out. Or maybe they have another candidate that's a backup that has other opportunities as well, and they can't end up with neither of you. So find that out, and if it's a real logical reason, maybe you can come to a mutual solution. If there is a deadline coming up that they want this person on board for, maybe once you make your decision, you can give them a comfort level that maybe you'll give your company 1 week instead of 2 because they bought the time that you needed, and now instead of giving a full 2 weeks, you'll start in 1 just to get on sooner if this all works out. You can come through with those things, but you got to understand the logic behind why there is this need. And if you can't come up with a logical reason, then are they just trying to force you through this because they're desperate, or they have a tough time finding people, or they just don't value this hire enough to really take their time, and you're so indispensable that if you can't give them an answer in 2 days, they're willing to pull the offer and they'll find someone else. So you need to dig into that, because if it's the latter, then this is probably a blessing in disguise that you had this discussion. To know that a company's that firm and needing an answer in 2 days, or they're pulling the offer, that to me is a sign that might not be the best place in terms of how they value their employees and how they value this hire and how integral this hire is into their operation. Okay, so just to recap, if you're faced with this situation, you have multiple opportunities you're interviewing through and navigating through, you get an offer on one with a deadline, you have another opportunity that's not going to wrap up for another week. First thing to figure out, who's the messaging coming from? If it's through a recruiter, understand the motivations. Really make sure you have that direct communication with the company to get the full story. Talk them through your situation, reinforce your enthusiasm, describe the importance to you of making the right decision with all the cards on the table, and lastly, set a timeline for follow-up so that they know they're going to hear from you and that they know this is coming from a place of respect and professionalism and that you're doing the right thing for yourself. Lastly, read their reaction. If you're getting the sense there's a real reason behind this, a real need, talk through it. See if you can come to a mutually acceptable timeline when that final decision could be made. And if not, if they're just making this move out of desperation and trying to pressure you into making a move, it might not be the right fit. So once you got all this figured out, stick to your guns. If you feel you should see this opportunity through, and in your heart you feel you should take another couple of days to see that through, then you need to stick to your guns and live with the results. If that company is going to pull that offer over another couple of days from the time they made the offer, then you got to live with the fact that if they're pulling that from you, you probably made the right decision. Even if you end up with nothing and you're starting from scratch, as easy as it is for me to say, I've seen too many situations play out inversely from trying to be forced into a situation. So really understand the power. Stick to your guns. If you're that close to seeing something through, it is so important. You're making a career decision. You're that close to having everything on the table. You got to do whatever you can possibly to see it through to fruition. Okay? So I know it's tough. You got these things hanging there. You don't want to get left with nothing. You might have been, messed up in the past from a situation that happened to you. But if you're having trouble with this, call me, reach out, message me on LinkedIn, and I'll help guide you through your individual situation as well. Okay, so before we wrap up, I just want to touch on some of the commentary from some of the people watching. And one of the questions that I think is very important, and there's no defined answer, how long is too long to make a decision? Put yourself in the company's shoes. And again, a lot of this comes down to understanding the company's motivations. And if they just need a decision, or if they have another candidate that's waiting on the back burner, or if they have a major deadline coming up, those things should all factor in to this answer. So if you got an offer today, all right, I usually like to give somebody a weekend. All right, if you get an offer on a Monday, the week is a good rough assessment. Have until Friday. You're working during the week. You can't really put the time into it. I think by Friday you should have a defined answer. If it's Friday or Thursday, taking the weekend, getting back on Monday with any questions or any follow-ups, I think that's a good initial timeline. Now, if you do have another situation going on that's going to stretch out another week or so, then I think it's realistic to have this discussion. I do not think, from all of my experience, that you should be fearful of asking for that time. Now, if you have another company that's telling you they're going through the motions, they have other candidates in play, you still have a few more rounds, it's going to be a few more weeks, at that point, you have to make the determination, are you willing to see this thing slide? Because then it's really not fair to drag a company on for a month or 2-3 weeks even, if you don't have even any clear idea of when that other process is wrapping up. At that point, timing didn't work out. You got to make a situation happen. So I think to answer that question from Sal, I think taking that initial time period, whether it's 2-3 days to really think through an offer, then getting back to a company, if you need to buy another week or so, and at least if you have a defined idea of what that other process is going to look like and when it's going to wrap up, then that is perfectly fair game, and any reasonable company should understand that. But if you don't have certainty, and there's a lot of gray area around, it could be another couple weeks, company's still in initial rounds, then I think you got to make a hard decision right there, because otherwise you're going to come across short-sighted and almost a little selfish, that trying to just buy this time, have them hold an offer for you while you do your thing. All right. We got a couple other good comments. One person said, I can see a situation where the first company might have had its person leave for the position for which you are interviewing, and the work needs to get done, which is why they may rush you for a decision. So that's 100% accurate. I think that's a great point from Carrie. They might have a need that this person left. Everyone's scrambling. This is a critical role. They need this person on board, so they need to get you there. But maybe if you know that, maybe they can figure out a solution. If it's through a recruiter, I'd personally suggest getting a temp in there for a couple of days. You can't suggest that as a candidate, but if you're using a recruiter, maybe giving that option is something that helps out. There's always a way around it versus forcing someone's hand tomorrow. And if they are really that desperate, this person left and they're desperate, they need you tomorrow, or they're pulling the offer, then how realistic is it that you're stepping into a bit of a messy situation? And more importantly, even if you're not stepping into a messy situation, if they need to fill this role and they really need to find the right fit and they're moving very quickly, what are the odds there's someone right behind you that they're going to hire? If they don't go with you and they pull that offer, do they really have someone who's next up to jump right in there? See, it's all negotiating and it's all playing your cards as they were dealt. So Carrie, it's a great point, but you have to also understand you have a lot of leverage in this situation. If you've gone through an interview process, they like you, they feel you're the right fit. Companies are not so easy. They pay us a lot of money to find good people. That's how hard it is to find good talent. And if you went through it and they really like you, odds are they're not pulling that offer over a day or two if you can accurately articulate and professionally articulate why you need that time. All right, the last comment is from Matthew West, and he just had a general observation. This topic really empowers candidates to trust your gut. And that goes to the last section we had in this video call about sticking to your guns. You really have to trust your gut in these situations. Use your recruiter effectively, whether it's myself or anybody you're partnering with, to help navigate through the negotiation process. And if you can't trust your recruiter, get a new one. And if you really feel that they're not trying to make this happen for you and all they want to do is close the sale, then you got to get a new one. So judge your gut through this process. But I can't stress enough the rarity again, of having a company that's going to put a hard deadline. So if you're sitting there and you're watching this show and you're facing this right now, you just got an offer, congratulations to you. If that company told you need an answer by Friday or they're pulling the offer, then odds are if that's coming through a recruiter, you're getting sold a little bit. You need to A, go to that company and figure this out, and B, find a new recruiter after this process is over. Okay, so with that said, unless there's any other questions or comments, I hope this was helpful. This happens so often. Again, it just happened 2 days ago. And we really had to give good guidance and coaching to help someone buy the time they need to see an opportunity that they actually thought was their favorite choice. But they were about to jump at the offer they had because of the deadline and feeling pressured. They're out of work. So you have to really think about these things. Trust your recruiter. Find one that you value, or else navigate through these processes. But reach out to me. Reach out to anyone at Advice. This is where we really have our value add. I hope this was helpful. Keep the comments coming throughout the week. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Hunt. Like, comment, share. Make sure you follow Advice Personnel. We're putting content like this out every single week to help you guide through your recruiting process, or if you're hiring new talent to your team. So with that said, I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday, an awesome weekend, and we'll be back next week, next Thursday, with a brand new episode, maybe a Halloween-themed edition. Put in the comments if you'd like to see certain costumes from me or any of my guests. Maybe we can oblige that request. But everyone have an awesome weekend. Thanks again for watching The Hunt. We'll see you next week.